Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, you may be detecting that this is a new angle. So we're just trying out some new kit with a iPad somehow, the angle we can create. So it's kind of we'll see. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. Write it in the comments. This way we can get so much more in the shots. You can see the deities behind us. You get to see Lord Nityananda. And we're kind of going for the Gaura Nitai look today with the orange and blue. Just so happened to be that way. All right, anyway, ramble, blah, blah.
All right. Canto 3, chapter 23, text 42, Devahuti's lamentation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Alright, text 42. What is difficult to achieve for determined men who have taken refuge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's lotus feet? His feet are the source of sacred rivers like the Ganges, which put an end to the dangers of mundane life. The words Ya Asritas Tirtha Padas Charana are significant here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Tirthapad. The Ganges is called a sacred river because it emanates from the toe of Vishnu. The Ganges is meant to eradicate all the material distresses of the conditioned souls. For any living entity, therefore, who has taken shelter of the holy lotus feet of the Lord, nothing is impossible. Kadma Muni is special, not because he was a great mystic, but because he was a great devotee. Therefore, it is said here that for a great devotee like Kadma Muni, nothing is impossible. Although yogis can perform wonderful feats, as Kadma Muni has already displayed, Kadma was more than a yogi because he was a great devotee of the Lord. Therefore, he was more glorious than an ordinary yogi. As it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, out of the many yogis, he who is a devotee of the Lord is first class. For a person like Kadma Muni, there is no question of being conditioned. He was already a liberated soul and better than the demigods, who are also conditioned. Although he was enjoying with his wife and many other women, he was above material conditional life. Therefore, the word Vyasanatyaya is used to indicate that he was beyond the possession of a conditioned soul. He was transcendental to all material limitations.
Sounds like you might have a comment to make there.
Well, I don't want to critique anything.
Critiquing and criticism, I wonder if they're exactly the same thing.
I didn't realize he was with the other women as well.
There were like 1,000 maidservants on the plane with him and all these ladies, you know.
Yeah, but what were they doing there?
It sounds like they was having a party, man. I mean, he's not necessarily Ekapatni Brat. He's not, you know. I mean, most of the sages, most of the other munis of his time, Devahuti connected with him, and she was kind of, in one sense, the only one what's his name? Got his head chopped off by Lord Shiva. Daksha. So after Daksha came back and took his birth again, and he had all these daughters, and he got him married to all these different munis, and many of the munis had multiple wives. And I was just hearing in Ramayan, Lord Ram was explaining when Suparnika came, and he said, "No, I want you," and he said, "But I have taken a vow, Ekapatni Vrat, I have taken a vow to have only one wife." So in Vedic times, it wasn't uncommon for a man to have more than one wife, and it wasn't a frowned upon thing. It was an understood and expected, accepted thing. It's only now that, at least in Western culture, we don't have for sure. But in Eastern...
Right. You sure?
Huh? For sure. I mean... Sure. Well, no, ironically, I mean, if you want to get into this, but ironically, what you wind up having is people having affairs. Because, well, Hare Krishna, this is what goes on in society. But in Vedic culture, if you look, anytime that a man became attracted to another woman, he would marry her and take responsibility for her. But now the same principles are still present in the society in a more degraded form. But now they don't take responsibility. It all has to be done, behind closed doors and in a very, usually in some sort of sleazy way. But still in Islamic culture, they still accept multiple wives. And also probably in parts of India they still allow it, I guess. I don't know 100%. But and probably in other cultures also, it's not an uncommon thing. And if you want some quotes from Srila Prabhupada, he also didn't have a problem with it. Polygamy, it's called. But he said that because society and the Western culture is the way that it is, that it's not something that we should do. So maybe I should get a few co-wives. 1,000. No, I don't want. It's enough. Ekapatni vrat. But there you go. It was just the shock, the sheer shock. Oh, as you were reading. Oh. So, shall we continue, or anything you'd like to add or subtract or say? Or?
I'll reserve judgment.
You reserve judgment. Okay, very good. All right. So we'll carry on. Text 43. After showing his wife the globe of the universe and its different arrangements, full of many wonders, the great yogi Kardama Muni returned to his own hermitage. Purport. All the planets are here described as gola, round. Every planet is round, and each planet is a different shelter, just like islands in the great ocean. Planets are sometimes called Dvipa or Varsha. This earth planet is called Bharat Varsha because it was ruled by King Bharat. Another significant word used in this verse is Bhavascharyam. Bhavascharyam. Many wonderful things. This indicates that the different planets are distributed all over the universe in the 8 directions, and each and every one of them is wonderful in itself. Each planet has its particular climatic influences and particular types of inhabitants, and is completely equipped with everything, including the beauty of the seasons. In the Brahma Samhita 540, it is similarly stated, Vibhuti Binam. On each and every planet there are different opulences. It cannot be expected that one planet is exactly like another. By God's grace, by nature's law, each and every planet is made differently and has different wonderful features. All such wonders were personally experienced by Kardama Muni while he traveled with his wife. Yet, he could return again to his humble hermitage. He showed his princess wife that although he was living in the hermitage, he had the power to go everywhere and do anything by mystic yoga. That is the perfection of yoga. One cannot become a perfect yogi simply by showing some sitting postures, nor by such sitting postures or so-called meditation can one become God, as is being advertised. Foolish persons are misled into believing that simply by some caricature of meditation, interesting, and sitting postures, one can become God within 6 months.
Here is the example of a perfect yogi. He could travel all over the universe. Similarly, there is a description of Durvas Muni, who also traveled in space. Actually, the perfect yogi can do that. But even if one can travel all over the universe, and show wonderful feats like Karma Muni, he cannot be compared to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose power and inconceivable energy can never be attained by any conditioned or liberated soul. By the actions of Karma Muni, we can understand that in spite of his immense mystic power, he remained a devotee of the Lord. That is the real position of every living entity. So he never lost his grounding, his foundation of spiritual, his spiritual grounding, despite how far he went, literally and otherwise.
Yeah, I was thinking we got distracted by maybe the more important point from the previous purport, which is that least we forget Kardama Muni is a pure devotee. So he's a great yogi, but yogi namapi sarvesham magatenantaratmanaha. He's a devotee. He's a yogi, but he's a devotee, and a pure devotee at that. And so somehow whatever he was doing was beyond the constraints of material limitations and material conceptions, because he was trying to do everything as a service to Krishna. And interestingly enough, part of that was getting married. So he's gotten married, even though he's a Muni, but he's married and he's a pure devotee. And then we see he has this amazing mystic opulence. And this mystic opulence is that although he's living in a hermitage, which God knows how big it was, but probably not much bigger than the front room here, and he was living there comfortably and happily. But to satisfy his wife and to please his wife, he created this flying aerial mansion. It's like more intense than a mansion, I think. And all these maidservants that went with and looked after her. And then they flew around the entire universe. And all of that is, as is being stated here by Srila Prabhupada, is not being compared to some sense gratification, but it's actually being compared to devotional service, because he's a pure devotee on the platform, and he's not doing it for satisfaction of his own senses. He's doing it in order to satisfy and please his wife, who's also a devotee, who's also a pure devotee. And then we see that he comes back to the hermitage, or the point that was made in this purport is that even though he was chilling out in that hermitage and getting on with his life and was quite content and happy, he had the potency to travel all over the universe if he wanted. But he wasn't doing it because he wasn't bothered by it. So that shows his renunciation. But for the purpose of satisfying his wife, which was an obligation that he took on, then he was willing to travel all over the universe in sheer opulence and show her the entire world just to make her happy. And that wasn't, but he was detached from it the whole time. He wasn't bothered, no problem. So I'm doing it, and it may look like I'm a sense gratifier and I'm an enjoyer, but actually he's just absorbed in serving Krishna, and he knows that in the future he's going to renounce it all anyway, and he's simply doing it to please her. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. So there you go. Very powerful. These lessons are extremely powerful and often, I think, missed or misconstrued or just not understood. And I can't say that I'm actually understanding it perfectly, but at least from what Prabhupada is saying, it seems to be that way. But we have to be careful that we don't go get a big palace, and not that everyone can do that anyway, what to speak of create an aerial mansion and fly around the universe. But, but the point being that let us try to make sure that all of our endeavors, whatever they may be, in work, in family life, in studies, in whatever, that somehow they're connected to Krishna, and that we're also cultivating detachment, internal detachment. We were just reading in Bhagavad Gita, right? One who's not attached, but at the same time, it doesn't mean one doesn't endeavor like that. We don't want Falgu Vairagya. I was reading about that in Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani this morning. Falgu Vairagya. We want Yukta Vairagya. So we engage things. Jiva Goswami explains that, I think it's Jiva Goswami or Sanatan, explains that that a devotee becomes protected by a certain armor by engaging in devotional service, and therefore he can engage with the material elements because he knows that they're Krishna's elements, and therefore he can engage, and that's yukta vairagya. But falgu vairagya means that I renounce these things, but it's artificial because it's not yours to renounce anyway. It's already Krishna's. So we renounce these things, and this idea of falgu is because of the Falgu River. And evidently this river flows, and at certain times of the year the river disappears, and it's hidden underneath the sand. It looks like it's just like a sand area, but actually the river is flowing, but underneath of that. So it's the same way that externally it looks like it's not there, it looks like you're detached, but internally you're not really detached. So that's the idea. I've really rambled on a bit, sorry about that. Any thoughts?
No.
She's a yukta vairagi.
Right.
You are. Amazing. You use everything in Krishna's service. And always detached, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, should we read?
Please, yeah.
Okay.
That's why we're here.
We're here to discuss. Go on. It's your turn, isn't it?
No.
No, is it mine?
Yeah.
I just talk so much. You can go ahead and read.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Lordy Lord.
After coming back to his hermitage, he divided himself into 9 personalities just to give pleasure to Devahuti, the daughter of Manu, who was eager for sex life. In that way, he enjoyed with her for many, many years, which passed just like a moment. Purport. Here, the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, Devahuti, is described as Surat Totsuka. After travelling with her husband all over the universe in Mount Meru and the beautiful gardens of the heavenly kingdom, she naturally became sexually stimulated, and in order to satisfy her sexual desire, Kaido Muni expanded himself into 9 forms. Instead of 1, he became 9, and 9 persons had sexual intercourse with Devahuti for many, many years. It is understood that the sexual appetite of woman is 9 times greater than that of a man. That is clearly indicated here. Otherwise, Kaido Muni would have no reason to expand himself into 9. Here is another example of yogic power. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead can expand himself in millions of forms, a yogi can also expand up to 9 forms, but not more than that. Another example is that of Surabi Muni.
No, Subari.
No,
Sobari.
He also expanded himself into 8 forms, but however powerful a yogi may be, he cannot expand himself into more than 8 or 9 forms. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, can expand himself into millions of forms, Ananta Rupa, innumerable countless forms, as stated in the Brahma Samhita. No one can compare to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by any conceivable energetic manifestation of power.
Powerful. Any thoughts? Commentary?
No. Self-explanatory.
Well, it's all I can do to not make some comments.
What's your comment?
Well, this is an interesting part.
Is it?
It is, yes, it is. I mean, not just the part about the fact that, he's a yogi, and he can expand himself into 9 times, and he was such an advanced yogi that he could do that. So that's quite powerful. Now, of course, the whole topic of sex life, and because people misunderstand these types of things, and in general, it's understood physiologically, I guess is the term, that as far as, so many things to say, but as far as physiologically, men are more easily satisfied in sex life than a lady. So in that way, just get this, Kardama Muni expanded himself 9 times to ensure that his wife again was satisfied. It was a selfless act. So although we may perceive it as a selfish thing, it was actually a very selfish act. He didn't expand himself 9 times for any other purpose, but he expanded himself 9 times to give pleasure to his wife. That's very powerful. So he's very renounced. It's not for him, it's for her, and to serve her, and to make sure that she's satisfied. So this is very, very powerful. And also says, went on for many, many years. Of course, the idea is that they were enjoying and traveling. The point was that they were a grihasta couple and they were meant to have children. So sitting in the hermitage, just doing his yoga and meditating on the Supreme Lord, and her serving him and becoming like disheveled in so many ways, was not an environment that was generating and creating, or let's say stimulating, the desire for children, which, in order to have children, you have to engage in sex life. But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am that sex life which is according to religious principles. And they were following religious principles. So all of these things are very, very subtle, but very powerful and very important for us to actually understand properly. But not to be misconstrued that somehow Devahuti was having sex with 9 different men and it was going on and it was all like, some kind of, crazy thing. No, let's understand properly. So that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I think we'll finish there.
Yes.
And the controversial topics will continue. So please join in. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments box, and my wife will happily answer them for you.
I do.
I know you do, because you're amazing like that.
Okay.
All right, Hare Krishna, everyone.
Krishna.
Thank you so much. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Haribol.